Welcome to episode 8 of Kevin Across America. This week, the detour to South America continues with a visit to Santiago, Chile.
Walking your dog down this driveway when
Because the newsman inside of me can't stand to bury a lead, I must inform you that less than 48 hours after filming this lovely introduction in a cable car, I found myself hospitalized in Chile with a 104-degree fever and kidneys that were shutting down. The verdict? A nasty Salmonella infection, which I'll get to in a bit. But first, let's start with the fun stuff.
My house in Budapest, my hidden treasure chest, golden grand beyond.
My girlfriend Jess and I woke up at 4 a.m., pretty exhausted, to catch our flight from Buenos Aires, Argentina to Santiago, Chile. We hailed an Uber to the Jorge Newbery Airport and caught the start of a spectacular sunrise on the ride there. Jorge Newbery is much smaller than the Aziza International Airport, which I had flown into. But Jorge Newbery is way closer to the city center. It's basically like LaGuardia versus JFK. Anyway, Jess and I checked in, ate some breakfast, grabbed our flight tickets, and stood in line waiting to board. I guess the airport doesn't have enough gates for every flight it serves, so passengers had to enter a jet bridge and walk down a flight of stairs. We then boarded a shuttle bus, which took us to an Aerolíneas Argentinas Boeing 737-800 that was sitting on the tarmac. After climbing up steep air stairs, Jess and I got settled in our seats.
Please fasten your seatbelts, steer folding tables, and put the back of your seat in an upright position.
The nonstop flight to Santiago was around 2.5 hours long. On takeoff, I had amazing views of Buenos Aires. In my last video, I talk about how it's the 4th largest metropolitan area in all of the Americas, with around 16 million people. Jess took a nap while I rode out some turbulence with coffee and snacks. I wasn't about to fall asleep and miss this, the Andes. It's the longest continental mountain range in the entire world. It runs for 5,500 miles through 7 different countries, from Venezuela in the north to Argentina and Chile in the south. We visited in late March, which is early fall for this part of the southern hemisphere, so I'd have to imagine the Andes get more snow-capped during the winter months. Anyhow, it wasn't long before we touched down in Santiago. At the International Airport, located around 20 minutes northwest of the city center, the airport has nonstop passenger flights from 4 different continents and serves as the base for one of Chile's 5 Air Force brigades. Jess's brother Alejandro met us outside of Immigration and Customs and drove us to our hotel in Santiago's city center. We basically dropped our bags, looked out the window, and then took a power nap. Chile is a spaghetti-like strip of land and one of South America's wealthiest, most developed nations. Santiago is located roughly right in the middle. It's not only Chile's capital, but its largest city, with nearly 7 million residents, or around 35% of the country's entire population. Santiago has a mild Mediterranean climate, meaning it has hot, dry summers and winters that bring average temps between freezing and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And don't forget, seasons in the southern hemisphere are flipped. Unlike Argentina, which prides itself on shunning a lot of American culture, Chile seems to welcome it. For instance, one could easily think they were in Los Angeles or Phoenix while walking around this outdoor shopping mall in a ritzy Santiago neighborhood. That glass skyscraper dominating the skyline in the distance is Gran Torre Santiago, meaning Great Tower in Spanish. Completed in 2013, it's become quite a focal point and visible from all around the city. The tower is part of the Costanera Center, which is home to 2 hotels, 2 other office towers, and Latin America's largest shopping mall. The Gran Torre Santiago has an observation tower called Sky Costanera that you can't miss. A 2-minute elevator ride, followed by this escalator, takes you to the very top. The 360-degree view speaks for itself, with panorama shots of the Andes, Santiago's financial district, Mapocho River, and Cerro San Cristobal, the city's largest park, which we'll visit later.
At 984 feet, this is the second tallest building in all of Latin America. In fact, it was constructed to withstand earthquakes, which Chile is prone to.
The observation deck has a bar called 300. That's the number of meters the building stands. The observation deck is also open air. After all, Santiago only sees 37 days of precipitation each year, on average. Sky Costanera is open 7 days a week, including holidays, from 10 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. Tickets were around $10 on weekdays and $15 on weekends. Pretty affordable compared to other observation decks around the world. There's also no time limit. One morning, Jess's mother, Norca, her brother, Alejandro, sister-in-law, Carolina, newborn nephew, Luciano, Jess and I had brunch at Castillo Forestal. The French restaurant occupies an old brick castle and is located within a long, narrow park. Our trip to Chile was in large part to meet Luciano. Talk about a beautiful baby. After brunch, Jess and I walked to the nearby Santa Lucia Park. An ancient volcano formed the hill that the park now sits on. The summit has a public lookout that's around 225 feet above the city. The park has uneven stone stairways, gardens, a mini chapel, and several fountains. Neptune Fountain is the most noteworthy. Workers built the fountain in the late 1800s with a neoclassical design. It's dedicated to the Roman god of the seas. The Chilean National Law Enforcement stands guard outside of this building, known as Palacio de La Moneda, or Palace of the Mint. Constructed during the late 1700s, the building pumped out coins up until 1929. During a military coup in the 1970s, the Chilean Air Force bombed the palace with rockets and cannon fire, leading then-President Salvador Allende, a socialist, to commit suicide. Though, still to this day, some believe Allende was actually assassinated. Today, Chile's president and 3 cabinet ministers work in Palacio de la Moneda. The building occupies an entire city block. Its wide, horizontal shape is meant to signal strength and stability. Plaza de Armas is a short 10-minute walk away. It's the city's historic square and home to the Metropolitan Cathedral. The majority of Chileans identify as Roman Catholic, and this is the country's main Catholic house of worship. The incredibly ornate cathedral has 2 towers, colorful stained glass, plus murals and frescoes on its ceiling. I'll just be honest and say Jess and I didn't feel entirely safe at Plaza de Armas, and aside from the cathedral, didn't find the plaza to be all that spectacular.
When I was a kid, my grandma Flo used to take me to the zoo all of the time, and I've been hooked ever since. The zoo here in Santiago is built into the side of the mountain, so there are a lot of steep inclines. On the upside, the views of the city are spectacular, and you get some good exercise. And by American standards, the zoo here lets you get pretty darn close to some of its animals.
The red panda, meerkat, and giraffe enclosures are just a few examples. The Chilean National Zoo is spread across 12 condensed acres with many exhibits stacked on top of each other into the mountainside. The zoo has many popular foreign animals, including African elephants, lions, and tigers. But around a quarter of its animals and nearly 40% of its birds are native to Chile, including Humboldt penguins, llamas, rheas, Andean condors, and Chilean flamingos. The zoo is currently running conservation programs to boost the wild populations of Humboldt penguins and Chilean flamingos, which are both in decline. The zoo is closed on Mondays, but open from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. every other day of the week. Tickets were around $4 for adults and $2 for kids. But just remember, there are a lot of steep inclines, and the Wi-Fi was pretty spotty. The zoo is part of the Santiago Metropolitan Park. It's the largest urban park in Chile, more than twice the size of Central Park in New York. We purchased shuttle bus tickets to get to the top. The open-air ride took around 20 minutes. We passed countless walkers and cyclists on the drive up. The views were breathtaking. The park, known as Santiago's Green Lung, runs along 3 hills, the tallest being Cerro San Cristobal. The highest point is nearly 1,000 feet above the rest of the city, approximately the same height as Gran Torre, Santiago.
I personally see a lot of similarities between Santiago and Los Angeles. For one, both cities are surrounded by mountains, and with it comes a lot of air pollution. It's particularly evident this evening.
Jess and I only had around 45 minutes to explore the park before it closed. And so we boarded a cable car for the ride back down. The park's cable car system underwent a major overhaul back in 2016. Each of its cabins can hold up to 6 people and travel at speeds of up to 11 miles per hour. Though, admittedly, I wish it went a bit slower so I would have had more time to take in the sights. Providencia and Las Condes are 2 of Santiago's safest upscale neighborhoods. We ate in the outdoor courtyard at Beppo Bistro Cafe one afternoon and the Cacao Much 100% Chocolate Cafe the following morning. I'd recommend both spots. We stayed at the Pullman Santiago El Bosque for around $80 a night. The hotel has a modern vibe and is located in Sanhattan. That's the city's financial district, cleverly named by blending the words and meanings of Santiago and Manhattan. Santiago's Bicentennial Park was an easy 20-minute walk from the hotel. In 1810, Chile declared its independence from Spain. The park is named in honor of the 200th anniversary of that date. There are a variety of sculptures, man-made ponds, refreshment stands, and shady trees for a picnic, with the Andes on the horizon. Coin-operated machines hold birdseed, which people can use to feed the park's flamingos, ducks, and other birds. Santiago's Rose Garden is a 15-minute car ride away and surrounded by glass buildings. The Rose Garden is really well maintained and close to a fancy shopping center. That's where we met Jess's friend Leo. He immigrated from Venezuela to Chile in 2015 in search of less crime and more economic stability. Leo drove us to parts of Santiago that most tourists don't go to, far from the rolling wine vineyards and alpine ski resorts.
It's a city that it keeps growing in every direction.
Leo noted that Chileans are, generally speaking, rule followers with traditional values.
They have been really friendly to me, and they welcomed me with their open arms when I got here, and I really appreciate that.
Chile has made much of its wealth in recent decades thanks to large-scale copper mining. And while it still has big pockets of poverty, Chile's current life expectancy is nearly 81 years. That's around 18 months more than the U.S.
Don't come thinking of how dangerous it is. Just come with open eyes and humility and thinking of having a good time and knowing different things and different people.
Leo dropped us off at Jess's cousin's apartment in the city center. That's where Alejandro was hosting a big barbecue on the rooftop. I recorded this vibrant sunset and the full moon that followed, excited about traveling to Vina del Mar and Valparaiso, Chile, on the Pacific coast the next morning. But that never happened. Instead, I woke up in the hotel around 4 in the morning with the worst headache, stomachache, fever, chills, and muscle fatigue I've ever had. After 24 hours of fighting the good fight, Alejandro drove me to Clinica Santa Maria, a nearby hospital. I rolled into the emergency room with a 104-degree fever, failing kidneys, and pain so bad I couldn't even bring myself to record with my iPhone for the sake of this YouTube video. A round of tests determined I had contracted Salmonella. According to the CDC, the bacteria infects nearly 1.4 million people in the U.S. each year, but only 2% of those cases actually require hospitalization. In other words, I got it really bad. Like 3 days in the hospital, postpone your flight back to America bad. I want to be clear, the Salmonella was not because of Alejandro's barbecue, but rather most likely because of the sushi, beef tartare, or pisco sours I had ordered at various restaurants in Santiago that week. And yes, in hindsight, I realized that was incredibly risky. One might even say foolish for an American tourist to indulge in while abroad. Needless to say, lesson learned. Jess was an angel from start to finish, standing by my side and playing translator with the hospital staff. By day 3, I was able to eat again, albeit only pretty bland food. And in case you're curious, the hospital bill was only around $2,700 US. My health insurance covered around 2/3 of that. Lastly, the staff at Clinica Santa Maria took really good care of me. Visiting Santiago and pretending that you understand Chile is like traveling to New York City and thinking you're an expert on the United States of America. The point I'm trying to make is there is so much more to explore within this nation of immense natural beauty. The next time I visit, however, I'll stick with fully cooked food. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and leave a comment below. My next stop, Spring Green, Wisconsin, back in the US of A. For now, from Santiago, Chile, I'm Kevin, across South America.
Oh, for you, I'd leave it all.